We've given you most of these introductions before each one of these forums, and so some of you that have been here for the evening will know these by heart. We do ask that there be no campaign signs, no buttons, no campaign clothing or literature in the room. We also ask that you remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking. This gives everyone the opportunity to hear, and also you can tell these debates are short given the amount of issues that we have to cover, and we want to give as much time to the candidates as possible. So please refrain from all applause except at the beginning of the debate when we will welcome our candidates, and at the end you'll have a chance to thank them as well. Now's the time to silence all cell phones and any other electronic devices you may have brought with you this evening. And again, I would remind you that there are chamber representatives around. In the event that someone does not follow the rules, you could be asked to leave this evening. We will be beginning as close to 8 o'clock as possible, and we'll be having candidates come to the stage soon. We look forward to a good debate this evening. Welcome. Good evening and welcome to the 2015 Shakopee Mayoral Candidates Forum being held at the Shakopee campus of River Valley Church. Tonight's debate is being sponsored by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. My name is Rob O'Neill. I'm the pastor of Brookwood Community Church and a member of the Chamber, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's debate. Our candidates for mayor are Mr. Dan Hennon, City Councilman Mike Luce, Mr. Bill Mars, and City Councilwoman Kathy Mokel. Would you welcome our candidates this evening, please? Tonight, the candidates are arranged in alphabetical order. Candidates will be given 1 minute to make opening statements, after which I'll ask them questions. Candidates will have 60 seconds to respond, and in some cases, their opponents will be given 30 seconds to make rebuttal comments. As moderator, I'll have an opportunity at times to ask follow-up questions. When I ask a follow-up question, candidates will have 30 seconds to respond unless otherwise noted. Each candidate will now have 1 minute to make an opening statement, and we will begin with Mr. Hennon.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dan Hennon, and I'm running for mayor here in Shakopee. And the reason I put my name in to run here is because I feel we can do things a little bit better. I feel that we have some big issues that we have not included you yourselves in the community to make these choices. I feel that there's been a lack of leadership where they've had to hire a consultant to come in to get people to work together. And I'm sitting here saying, come on, we can do a little better than this. So I decided to put my name in. I want to put together a simple and efficient government for you.
Councilman Luce.
Hi, my name is Mike Luce. I've been on the council for 2 years. I've tried to immerse myself in every aspect of the city government. I've done ride-alongs with the police department, the fire department, the sheriff's department. I've gotten the FRA here twice. For those of you who don't know who that is, that's the Federal Railroad Authority. We're trying to get a quiet zone in Shakopee. The UP has come to the table. That's the railroad involved. At this time, I am going to bow out of this race. I am going to put my backing towards Mr. Mars. I plan on doing everything I can for him, and I hope he's our next mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mars.
Welcome and good evening. Thanks, Chamber, for hosting this along with the church. My name is Bill Mars, and I'm a candidate for mayor of Shakopee. I have served our community for over 26 years. I believe in community service, just like John F. Kennedy said back in the early 60s. It's not what your city can do for you, but what you can do for your city. And I have lived that during my long-term residence here in Shakopee. I would like to become mayor again to face the challenges that we face over the next many years that I'm sure we'll talk about tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Mokel.
My name is Kathy Mokel. I'm a wife, a mother, and a small business owner here in Shakopee. 16 years ago, my husband and I set down roots here in Shakopee. We've raised our family here, we've built our business here, and we've become part of this community. We joined the Shakopee Chamber. We joined St. Joachim and Ann's Parish. We're members of Shakopee Area Catholic Schools. I now serve as City Council member. I also am the Land Use Advisory Committee on the Met Council, and I'm also a board member of Southern Valley Alliance for Battered Women. Thank you.
Well, candidates, we're going to begin with an article the Star Tribune ran recently with the headline, Shakopee mayoral election could change city's course. If you were elected, how would that change the course of the city? Mr. Mars, we'll begin with you.
I read that article. I was interviewed for it. Change of course. I believe for the last 15, 20, 30, 40 years, that Shakopee has always tried to take steps forward. Many administrations have done each of their part. So I read that quote and I really didn't think it was going to be a change of course. Maybe a steady of the ship, maybe to move forward in a way that is more inclusive.
Ms. Mokel, if you were elected, how would it change the course of the city?
I believe that over the last 2 years, we've been doing great things for the community. We've paid down debt, we have built infrastructure, and we have done many things to collaborate in our downtown. I think that we're on a good course, in fact. So I look forward to that continued growth of planning in Shakopee.
Mr. Hannon, if you were elected, how would that change the course of the city?
Change of course. Well, me being elected here to mayor would definitely change the course here in Shakopee. There wouldn't be any more large-scale projects without referendums. There wouldn't be big decisions being made without taking the time that should be taken to review these projects. I also want to change the course of these tax concessions. I think as mayor, I can sell the city of Shakopee without tax concessions. We have a wonderful city, wonderful amenities, and I feel I can do that. So that's what I'm about.
Well, those of you who are here for the City Council debate know that the community center has been a major issue, and a referendum to expand the community center earlier was defeated. Was the council vote recently a chance to circumvent the referendum process, and what do you think about that decision? And Ms. Mokel, will begin with you, and I do have follow-ups.
We have in Shakopee paid down debt, built infrastructure, brought businesses to town, a lot of them without incentives. And we put ourselves in a position where, with paying off this debt, that we could do these tax abatement bonds for the 20 years. If we went to referendum, it would cost us more money, more interest, and I believe that it still would have passed.
Well, Councilwoman Mokel, I assume then you do support the project, given what you have said so far. Would you stop the process that's in place today for any reason if you were elected mayor?
I don't see any reason to stop the project at this point.
Mr. Hennon, the referendum years ago failed. Was the current city council's decision an opportunity to circumvent that? And what do you think about that decision?
I think so. I think that by not allowing that to be up to the voters in the city to make that decision, that is a circumvention. And I feel that it has gone on past referendums that have been turned down, and I think people have said either we just don't want this or we just don't know enough about it.
Well, then, to clarify as a follow-up, do you support the proposed community center project, and why or why not?
I do not support this project at this time, and I'd like to take more time for the community to get involved. It's a community center, folks. This is something that we should be coming together as a community to put this project together. And I just don't feel that's happening.
And just to clarify, if you were elected mayor, would you help to stop the process that's in place, even if that delay would cost the city money? Why or why not?
As in the debate for the city council race, Matt Lehman had a good point in saying, well, if it's going to cost $10 million, then probably not. But if it's $1 million, that might be something to look into.
Mr. Mars, a former referendum failed. Was the city council vote an effort to circumvent that old referendum, and what do you think about that decision?
I think one of the biggest questions about the community center is the community as a whole, which is all of you. As I've been out campaigning and talking to people and actually listening to people, there's a lot of different opinions. I have heard my opponent, along with the mayor, mention all the way since last spring that I'm sure that it will pass by a referendum. However, we're not seeing a referendum. I am a supporter of the community center. Are there things I would have done differently? Of course. The reason I'm running is actually to work on the financial aspects and impact that our residents, all of us, including myself, I'm a resident, that we will feel in 2017 and 18 and moving forward.
Well, I heard you say that you do support the community center project. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes.
And then the second follow-up that you get on this topic, and then we have a couple people that would like to make additional comments. Would you, if elected mayor, stop the process that's in place, even if it would cost the city money, and why or why not?
Well, I'm a follower of the process, and I looked at the city agenda for tomorrow night, going out for specs, and then the timeline outline said it will go accepting the bids in late December. You're asking me a hypothetical. I'm being prepared to lead this city for the financial aspects of it. To go back, I would do things differently. Would I go back? I don't think so.
Mr. Hennon, 30 seconds to rebut.
I think that it's our duty to fully understand all the costs that are associated with this community center. Not just how much does it cost to build it. There's an operating cost. There's a cost after 10 years. There's going to be new items that might need to be added to it. There might be some additional maintenance. That's going to cost money, and it's going to cost the taxpayers money.
Councilwoman Mokel, 30 seconds to follow up.
To say that we didn't have community involvement in this project is probably misstated. We had a task force with the school board that was voted to move forward with the project. We met with all of the sports associations, the seniors, the Rotary. We also did a scientific study through Leatherman. We had 3 open houses, and we did an online rebuttal from anybody who wanted to speak against or for the community center, and it was overwhelmingly for the community center.
As was the case with City Council as well, we do want to follow up and ask that we have heard a lot of discussion about referendums and big projects. When should we use referendums on funding projects, and when should we trust our elected officials to make a decision? Councilwoman Mokel, this is still the same question, so we'll begin with you, and you'll have 60 seconds to respond to this.
Since we are a representative democracy, it is just as important for us to vote on these items as referendum. I think a referendum is when we think about whether it's a want to this community. I think when you have put 20 years into building this project and voting it down, but your city is still growing, we are lacking those amenities for as we grow to those 40,000 people. And that's when it becomes a need.
Mr. Hennon, what is the balance between decision-making by elected officials and the referendum process? When do you use which?
Well, first of all, referendum on the community center. That's a large-scale project, probably one of the largest ones Shakopee's ever done. And so a referendum absolutely needed. You know, for smaller items, just like Matt Lehman said, police cars, fire trucks, I don't think that there's any debate that our community needs items like that. But on large-scale projects, absolutely a referendum is a nice way that the people can vote and have a voice in what really happens here in Shakopee.
Mr. Mars, when do we use referendum? And when do we have elected officials make the decision?
Well, I think for the community center, the state legislature told us when we have to use it. If we're going to use the GO bonds for a community center, it's stated they have to go for a referendum. If you use a tax abatement bond, which in the past has been used for business development, business parks, industrial parks, and recently has been used for expansions of community center, there's no referendum needed. It's a tough decision, just like Councilmember Lehman said earlier. We referendum for a fire hall that we need that can lower our response time and actually save our citizens some money on their insurance. But then on a dynamic single largest project in the city of Shakopee, we don't have a referendum, and it's decided by a body of 5.
Well, candidates, allow me to introduce to you now Sam Fountain. He is a participant in the Introduction to Democracy class at Shakopee High School, and the members of this class wrote several questions to be asked during this debate, and he's got 2 questions for you as mayoral candidates this evening. Sam.
What, if any, are your plans for the expansion of public transportation in Shakopee?
Mr. Hennon, we'll begin with you.
Public transportation, I think that we look and see what the need is of the community. I think that we look into, there's different transit stations that we put into the community that, are they running efficiently? Finding ways to work with people to get them to and from work or where they want to go. So,
Mr. Mars, what's your
Public
plan
transportation
for public
plays
transit?
an important role. Obviously, we have a lot of commuter transportation with our park and rides that take our residents out of our community. I think with our recent business expansion and the opportunity, we can actually be the place where we can live, play, and work in the community. So maybe we should be looking at transportation within our own community as the next phase of transportation rolls out.
Councilwoman Mokel, the place of expansion of public transportation in Shakopee.
We are in need of expanding our transportation in Shakopee. We have brought a lot of jobs here and a lot of people that taking those buses into town. Now we need to work on our circulatory system as we get these people from those stops into jobs, Canterbury being one of them. We have Valley Fair, and we also have Rube and Shutterfly and all of those businesses that we've brought to town that we need to get those workers to their jobs.
Very good. Sam, I believe you have a second question for them.
How do you plan on bringing more upper-income occupations to Shakopee?
Upper income occupations. Mr. Mars, how could we bring them to Shakopee? How would you plan to bring them to Shakopee?
Well, it first starts with our community. I believe Shakopee has a lot going for it. We have things that other communities do not have. We have a downtown. We have a vibrant park and rec division. We have life cycle housing from all spectrums all the way up. I think we have topography, which is important. We're by the river. Those things can draw businesses all by themselves. Just over the last 5 years, many businesses have come here even without incentives. Some obviously have. I think we've incentivized 7 companies out of 12 in the last 4 years. But I think Shakopee can stand alone and be proud of what we have, and I think that's what we have. We have a workforce, a diverse workforce that draws employers here, and hopefully they're on the upper end like Emerson or DataCard.
Councilwoman Mokel, how do you plan to draw upper income jobs to Shakopee?
Well, I think it's important to understand that we are already close to 60,000 is our average income here in Shakopee, whereas the metro area is 40,000. I think it's important to understand that when you have RAR, you have Bergen Smith, you have your Polaris. There is a lot of high income jobs already in Shakopee, and it's when you understand those averages and to think about where you want to be when you talk about how high of an income you're looking for.
Okay. Next question, going back to the topic of building again. Do you believe that spending several $1 million on a new city hall is a necessary expense given the increasing trends that we see toward electronic transactions and electronic communications? Why or why not? For this question, we'll begin with Councilwoman Mokel.
I think it's important that we think about the new city hall differently. I think that the current facility that we are in lacks security. We need to keep our basement open at all times because that's where our restrooms are. We have 2 doors, one which our receptionists cannot see during the day to see if people are coming or going, if there's somebody in the building. So we need to work on that, and that's part of the reason that we've been looking at different downtowns. I would like to keep, or different city halls, excuse me. I would like to keep it downtown, but again, we were voted down 2 to 3 on that to take another look at some of the property that we own downtown.
So as the follow-up on that, you would not support moving City Hall from downtown if you had your choice about it. Would you care to explain that decision or that position?
I think it's because when you think about your city government, you always want it to be at the heart of your community. And I believe our downtown is our heart. And to take it out of that context, I think that you're losing something. It's not just about the city hall is supporting the jobs, but it's also bringing the people to the downtown who may be looking at different avenues of spending money or eating downtown.
Mr. Henyon, do you believe that spending millions of dollars on a new city hall is a necessary expense right now? Why or why not?
I think that it goes with the long-term planning that we've already voted for and that we put through. I think that from what it sounds like and from being down at City Hall myself, that it does seem to be a little dated. As much as it does dishearten me a little bit that it's moving out of the direct vicinity of the downtown area. You know, downtown is larger scale than just around Turtles and just right there, right when you cross the river bridge. I do think that, you know, and it's right next door to the police station and City Works. I think it makes some sense to put a nice structure there and to be able to say, hey, this is our city for the new businesses that are coming into town and for the current people that live here.
So just to clarify, because we are following up with each candidate, you do support moving City Hall out of the downtown because of the amenities that it would bring to the current core of the city campus?
I do. I think that's a good project.
Mr. Mars, do you support moving City Hall and spending the money given the new information technologies that we have?
Support spending money. We've already spent money. I was involved on the City Hall siting committee that included the police station, the buying of that land, and designing the police station so we can have a campus setting. That was well over 15 years ago. It's called long-term planning. Now we're coming into a building. The old bank building is antiquated, inefficient, ineffective for city government, and it's time to move to a campus setting. I think actually that's where opportunity knocks for the downtown, for the old building. Wherever, if we move City Hall out, that will be a great opportunity for downtown to redevelop that site.
So just to follow up again, you support moving the City Hall out of the current downtown?
Yeah, I think it's a win-win. It creates efficiencies for our city in a campus setting, for the citizens or the business people that want to come and need city services all at one place rather than spread out over town. And actually, I think it's a benefit of downtown because then it's a redevelopment opportunity and a new style of business, new customers for lunch and visitors in downtown. And I think that's a win-win for Shakopee.
Well, candidates, many citizens have seemed concerned recently about the level of conflict that's been happening between city council members. And again, after reviewing findings from an external consultant who was hired to help improve those city council operations and relations, the city council developed, agreed upon, and ultimately adopted a norms of behaviors document in March of 2015. Well, the Chamber has a desire to work with an effective and collaborative city council. So what do you think about these norms, and what would you do to abide by them? Mr. Hennon will begin with you.
From what it seems like, there's been a lack of transparency. And from the people that I've talked to, from watching some of the city council meetings, it just seems that when you have a 3-2 vote split, it seems like there's 3 people that are working together and leaving 2 people out. That's not a good way to manage a city council. And I think that we can do a better job. I don't need to have rules to be professional. I think it's just being professional and being a leader. And I feel I have those.
Mr. Mars, what would you do to live by the norms of behaviors?
Well, I think the last action last spring of the council hall bringing in a moderator, mediator for it's a black eye to our community. We all need to get along, and we need to listen to each other. Stop talking and listen. There's a movie called Dave. It's about the president, Kevin Kline. And there's a moment in that movie where he says, you know, I should listen to you more, you the people. I should care more about you than I care about myself. As a governing board, it's important to work collaboratively together, and maybe it's the common goals that weren't existent when the city council had friction.
Ms. Mokel, what do you think about these norms, and what would you do to abide by them?
I think any business has norms of behavior. I don't think that a council is any unusual. You go to a job, you sign a handbook, you are expected to do certain things. I think that you can't open a business and not have some norms of behavior for your staff to know what the rules are, and that's just important. You know, we are a 5-member council, and we're passionate about what we feel. But I think at the end of the day, when you start taking personal attacks at each other, I think that is where you need to have the norms of behavior. You need to be able to walk away, whether it's a 3-2 vote or whether it's a 5-0 vote, and know that your fellow council members have done the right decision for the city.
Well, Councilwoman Mokel has recently been endorsed, or not recently, but has been endorsed by current Mayor Brad Tabke. So we want to ask council member or candidates, what do you think about that kind of relationship? And I will ask a follow-up, who has endorsed each of you for mayor? Mr. Mars, will begin with you.
Well, number one, I think the biggest endorsement that I have right now is actually my wife, because she knows the sacrifices that I've made through the community over the last 26 years of missed dinners, going to meetings, taking part, being collaborative, and working for the betterment of the city. When I was mayor, the last time when I was running, I was endorsed by a former mayor. Certainly, the current mayor can endorse one of the council member Mokel. That's an opportunity. We're not going against Brad Tapke, our mayor. We're going against the 3 of us here to see who's the next person that will lead our city to greatness.
Councilwoman, Mr. Mars, just as a follow-up though, have you been endorsed for mayor this time? What endorsements do you bring this evening?
No, I don't go out to earn endorsements. I am my own person. I have no agenda, and I'm not tied to any group. I'm just like you, a resident, a neighbor, someone that goes to the grocery store, buys gas, goes to the hardware store, and works at the betterment of our city, and that's what I've always stood for, and I believe deeply in it.
Councilwoman Mokel, what does the endorsement of Mayor Tabke mean to you, and how close is your affiliation with him, and what does that relationship mean to policies that you would pursue in the future?
I think it was very kind for Mr. Tabke to endorse me. I wasn't looking for an endorsement. I was just looking to keep going what we were doing in this community, and that's why I felt the need to run. I think that, like Mr. Mars, I mean, my biggest endorsement is my husband, but I also have 3 children, 20, 16, and 8, that are looking at the things that I'm doing for this community, and I hope that I'm showing them the type of leader that I would like them to be in society.
Just as a follow-up, and we'll ask each candidate, are there other endorsements that you have this evening?
No, I wasn't seeking any other endorsements.
Mr. Hennon, what do you think about the endorsement by the mayor of Ms. Mokel?
Well, I think certainly we can all see that that was going to happen because they voted similar in a lot of things that they voted through, like the community center. So that's not surprising to me. Myself, I have not taken any endorsement from anyone because my endorsement is the people here in Shakopee. Getting out and talking to the residents here, getting out and understanding what your needs are. I don't have a personal agenda. My personal agenda is working for you.
And candidates, just to clarify, I have plenty of endorsements to not run for mayor, city council, or school board. So I join you in that, and I'm proud of that fact as well. Now, despite the fact that this is a nonpartisan position, how might your personal partisan political views influence how you serve Shakopee? Councilwoman Mokel, will begin with you. How might your personal partisan views influence how you serve Shakopee?
You know, I think that my personal views of being a conservative have played well for me. I think that as I move forward, as a city council member, I don't think that you get into a lot of those issues. I think it's just as we get into the planning of this city and as we move towards the West End, it is the smart planning, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing as mayor.
Mr. Hennon, how might your personal political views influence the way that you serve the city, despite the fact that this is a nonpartisan position?
Sure. Well, I myself am a conservative. I work in commercial banking. I like accounting. I'm a numbers guy. And so there's conservative thought process in that. Conservative even in my lifestyle, living below my means, balancing my own budgets in my life. So I think that that's something that I can bring to the table here and in the leadership in reviewing the projects and different things that come across the board.
Mr. Mars, despite the fact that this is a nonpartisan, non-politically partisan position, how would your personal political views potentially influence the way you serve?
Well, the best part about local politics is actually having it be apolitical to represent you, the people. If you want to know what conservatism looks like or feels like, you have someone that was your mayor 15 years ago, and after I lost, you take 500 campaign signs and you're going to throw them in the garbage. I was talking about my wife earlier. No. We're going to put them up in the attic. We may use them again. So you take them down from your attic and dust them off and use them again. That's called conservatism. I am a fiscally conservative person. I try to get away from the spend and tax policies of the current administration and move Shakopee forward in a continued conservative way that we're most accustomed to in the past.
All right. The City Council recently approved changing the mayor position to a 4-year term. What do you think about this decision? And Mr. Hennon, will begin with you.
Sure. I think what that did is it just took the power away from the people a little bit. By having someone there for 4 years, as I understand that when a person gets in the role and they're adjusting to it and it may take some time, having to elect someone in 2 years, vice versa, keeps the power to the people to have their representation in their vote.
As a follow-up to that, do you believe that the mayoral position, because pay was a part of that discussion, is the mayor overpaid, underpaid, or about right, and why do you think so?
You know, I think that the mayor position, I'm seeking it not for the pay. I'm seeking it because I want to serve my community and I want to provide some good leadership. So as far as the numbers, I'm not for raising the pay or anything like that. I think it's probably well validated to have some sort of compensation a little bit, but at the same time, we're Shakopee here. We're not like a downtown, we're not a community of 60,000 people. It's not a full-time job role. It's a part-time job role. There are wonderful people that work for the city that manage the day-to-day dealings, and I just think that the pay is good where it's at.
Mr. Mars, what do you think about the decision to move toward a 4-year term for the mayor?
I actually think it's a good idea. It gives a mayor, just like the council, a little more time. You got to learn your ropes over the first year or two to get on board, whether it's council or mayor. So 4 years, making it equal. If there's 5 equal board members, with one being the mayor, a weak mayor system, having 4 years on an equal platform is fine.
And do you believe that the mayor is overpaid, underpaid, or just about right?
Well, I was at the meeting that they were going to discuss a raise from the current $15,000 to $35,000, and I actually was the one that spoke up, and I'm glad the discussion changed because I got some friends in Dorset, Minnesota that would love to come down. I think they're brothers. They're 4 and 5 and 6 years old. They'd like to be mayor at $35,000. There's no room in our community, our conservative community, for a mayor at $35,000 for a part-time job.
Councilwoman Mokel, what do you think about the decision to move to a 4-year mayoral term?
I think it's important to move our mayor to a 4-year term. I mean, when you're voting for a 2-year term mayor, you are barely getting through one tax cycle, because your first year you're fulfilling the tax cycle that the former council had put together and former mayor. And so I think it's a good thing to move to a 4-year mayor cycle.
And just as I asked the other candidates, is the mayor position overpaid, underpaid, or just about right?
I think the mayor pay is just about right. I think that as we move forward and become more of a metropolitan community, you know, Mr. Hennon said 60,000. Well, we're going to be there in no time flat, and we have to really think about this mayor and that it is becoming more than a part-time position. I mean, you're on call 24/7, just like an on-call firefighter. You know, people expect that answer if they're asking you on a Sunday night.
Mr. Hennon, you wanted to follow up.
Yeah, I want to just clarify with the full-time, part-time role. I feel that I don't need to micromanage the city. As the mayor, I feel that I can provide the leadership to be there for hard decisions, to be there to support the community and what we need. But I don't feel in raising the pay or treating it as a full-time job role is really necessary at this point in Shakopee.
Mr. Mars, a follow-up as well.
Yes, thank you. One of my opponents, Councilmember Mokel, was in a Star and Tribune article back many months ago talking about, oh my gosh, it runs 24/7. You know, I do it for the love of my community because I want to. I don't do it for the pay, and it should be a part-time job. And, you know, if you do it for the love of the community, that's great. But 24/7, you know, we can do better than that.
Councilwoman Mokel.
I think it's important to also think that if we're going to attract people to this service, that we do sometimes need to pay more. And that's to get good people, you need to be able to willing to pay more. I don't think it's just about the service aspect. That's great, but for somebody to take that much time off work to attend ribbon cuttings and go to business deals with the businesses that want to meet with them, I think that they need to be compensated for that.
Well, candidates, some people on Facebook are calling for the City Council to consider restructuring to include representation from wards. What do you think about the idea of representation from wards on City Council? Mr. Mars, we'll begin with you.
I'm opposed to wards. I've watched many larger cities. It becomes a personal interest, neighborhood by neighborhood. I want this, I'll help you. I think the biggest thing in our community is trying to make decisions for the best interest of the community as a whole. I've been doing that for 25 years here in our community, and I hope to continue to do it for the best interest of our community as a whole, not section by section.
Councilwoman Mokel, what do you think about the idea of including representation from wards?
I don't think that I would support wards. I think that when I look at communities that have a ward system, they're also, some of them are even begging people to run in their ward. And I know of one person who ran and said she'd be absent for a year, and they still elected her because they needed somebody in that ward. So I don't think that wards are the answer to what we want to do. We are a representative government of our entire community.
Mr. Hennon, what do you think about the idea of wards?
I feel the same way. I don't feel that wards would be a good idea for the city of Shakopee.
Okay, candidates, the Star Tribune also recently indicated that in this campaign, allegations had been raised against Councilwoman Mokel about business and personal finances. Councilwoman, we'll begin with you. How do you want to clarify or respond to allegations that have been insinuated against you about your business and personal finances?
Well, first of all, I think everybody, knows about my finances at this point, so I don't know what else you want me to tell you more. I think that we've all, as community and residents, have gone through tough times, especially when 2008 we had a recession. And all I can say is that I continue to rebuild my life with my husband and my family, and I have done a great job the last 2 years on the city council. We have paid off debt. We have done more for our infrastructure, and we've done great things for this community.
Mr. Hennon, what would you add about allegations that have been made?
Well, to be quite honest, I kind of think it was in poor taste to bring those things up. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Kathy Mokel and even Bill Mars here, and I think putting in personal things in a campaign, I think the bottom line is sticking to the issues, sticking to what's going on in Shakopee. I think that's more important than having conversations on personal issues.
Mr. Mars, what would you add?
Miss Kathy Mokel, I am so sorry to hear about your life issues. I hope these pass you quickly. I am an above-board person. I always take the high road. I believe I have been in public office before. My life is an open book. And it's true. I broke Mrs. Johnson's window in 8th grade with an apple, and I'm sorry. But I believe when you're in politics, unfortunately, from time to time, it's an open book. But with that being said, like Bernie Sanders said the other night, let's move forward.
I'm not sure that's exactly how he put it, but point taken. Wikipedia says the following about the weak mayor system. In a weak mayor system, the mayor has no formal authority outside of the council. The mayor cannot appoint or remove officials and lacks veto power over council votes. As such, the mayor's influence is solely based on personality in order to accomplish desired goals. So in a weak mayor system such as Shakopee has, tell us why your personality would be the best and the most successful at accomplishing your desired goals. Mr. Hennon, will begin with you.
Okay. Well, I'm young, I'm energetic, I'm in the know. I know when companies are moving to different cities. I think that getting the community involved and getting out there, the mayor can have a lot of power and a lot of pull. Even though I am one single vote on a vote of 5 people, I can have a lot of supporters behind me, and hopefully a lot of supporters behind the city council in the dealings that we're working with. So that's what I can bring.
Mr. Mars, why would your personality be best at accomplishing your desired goals in the mayoral system we have?
Well, I'm a constant positive person. I lift people up. I think that's important as a face of a community. We are all equals. It is a weak mayor, but if you're going to be the figurehead, you have to have a real positive outlook. You got to know your facts about your city. You got to be encouraging. I think those are important aspects to have. I think I've had that, have those aspects for our community, and I've had them for a long time.
Councilwoman
strong.
How would your personality be the most successful at accomplishing your desired goals?
Well, I think it's always hard to talk about yourself and your positive attributes, but I think integrity is one of the bigger things about this community, and a love for it. And I think that no matter what we do in the city of Shakopee, as long as you are the mayor, you have to have a love for your city and to bringing business and meeting with the people that want to meet with you and having an open dialogue at all times.
Mr. Hennon, 30 seconds to follow up.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. Even though you're not seeing it tonight, because this is kind of a little serious and everything, right? But I like to smile a lot. I like to, even though I'm not the mayor right now, I get out and I promote Shakopee. I'm born and raised here in the community, and I think that there's so many wonderful things that our community has to offer that just talking to people outside of the city, they might not know of some of these businesses or some of these different venues that we offer. So I just think a smile goes a long way.
Candidates, the current influx of lower paying jobs has created workforce, housing, and transportation issues for our community. How would you lead our community as we address these issues? Mr. Mars, will begin with you.
Well, we use a word that doesn't sound very good. It's called workforce housing. I don't know. I was on the Met Council committees years ago. They call it life cycle housing. We all have to start somewhere. But it's the whole idea that if you work in a job, I worked at McDonald's back when I was in high school and college, low-paying job, lived with my parents, probably could have gotten an apartment with a friend. We all have to start somewhere. But the whole idea is that you're going to better your life and move up. And that's why the word life cycle. So I'm not a big fan of workforce housing. If we had to have it, or if we could, we haven't planned enough for this. It needs to be right next to a transit node. It needs to be right next to the services that that workforce housing would demand.
Councilwoman Mokel, how would you lead the city as we address the issues of workforce housing and transportation?
Well, I think it's important to understand what workforce housing is and what it isn't. It's not Section 8 housing. It is tax credits that are given from the federal government to builders that want to build apartment buildings. And so they do it at a reduced rent. But you still have to qualify with income. People that would qualify are even police officers, nurses, teachers. All of those individuals would qualify based on income. And there's an extensive background check as well. And as far as the transit, I think that we've done a great job of putting in some transit hubs. Now we need to think about the transit to the businesses, the circulator routes, and thinking about how we're going to get them from the hubs to their jobs.
Mr. Hennon, how would you lead our city as we address issues of workforce housing and public transit?
Well, as we look into workforce housing, I definitely want to learn more about it in the community here to see if people here are for or against certain projects that may come about. We certainly don't want to have developers come in and do a project and then leave, and now we're stuck with this workforce housing and issues and stuff that can come from that. But I do believe that it is good to have a balance in a city that has all different types of housing for everyone. So I do believe in it. I just want to make sure we go about it the right way.
For next question, we're going to turn to Shakopee Public Utilities. Oh, Ms. Mokel, follow up.
I think it's also important to understand that developers don't just build workforce housing and leave. They have to market themselves with individuals that will manage the business in a certain way and know what how to get those government subsidies. They've got to maintain a certain level.
All right, Mr. Mars.
Follow up on this. There's going to be a discussion tomorrow night at City Hall about workforce housing in a location that they'd like to rezone. I've been a long-term planner in this community for a long time to guide and tell residents that this property is going to be zoned this way for so long, and then to possibly change it in what appears to be a spot zoning for workforce housing. I would be opposed to that.
Well, candidates, should the Shakopee Public Utilities and audience, if you could refrain from clapping so that we can give the candidates a chance to speak. Should the Shakopee Public Utilities Commission consciously try to promote economic development? And this is kind of a three-part question, beginning with should Shakopee Public Utilities promote economic development? If so, what's the best way to go about it? And then a third part, if elected to city office, how would you work with the Shakopee Public Utilities to encourage this course of action? Councilwoman Mokel, will begin with you.
Could you repeat the first part first?
Should the Shakopee Public Utilities consciously try to promote economic development?
I believe that the Shakopee Public Utilities should really put forth effort as we develop these opportunities in this community. Right now, we're not thinking about the businesses that are coming to town and what they want to spend. And one of our biggest complaints is restaurants. And O'Brien Public House was one that ended up paying $100,000 just to connect to water that was already there. And they had to do those payments before they could even start construction. So I think that we need to get public utilities on board to understand what it costs these businesses to do business in Shakopee if we want them to come here.
Well, and as follow-ups in that, what would be the best way for them to go about it, and what could you do if you were elected to office to encourage them to do this?
I think that they need to rethink about tax credits for the businesses coming here. And then the other piece is maybe giving them a 5-year payment plan as they build their business, and instead of collecting everything all up front.
Mr. Hennon, should the Shakopee Public Utilities consciously try to promote economic development? And if so, what would be the best way for them to do that? And how would you go about working with them if you were elected?
Sure. I think that it does make a lot of sense for the Shakopee Public Utilities to support new businesses and new entities that are coming into the city. I think that there is some way to work with them because there are a lot of initial expenses when coming and doing a project, and finding ways to distribute out those expenses over time, or finding a way to work out with the business.
Mr. Mars, so just to clarify, what course would you take if elected to encourage them to
I'd like
do
to
so?
work with the public utilities to see what course of actions they're taking, how we can have a partnership with the City Council and the Shakopee Public Utilities to make sure these items are happening.
Mr. Mars, should Shakopee Public Utilities consciously encourage, promote economic development?
Well, we do. The public power that we provide and the water that we provide at the utility is actually one of our biggest assets. We have very, very competitive rates on our power and our water, and that's why cities or businesses want to come to our community. When they redevelop in our downtown, and those fees are expensive, a lot of those fees are designed and actually feed by the Met Council. We have a system in our utility that is designed that it will, to build it out to a full-scale city when it's all done. And I think those fees are important to build the next step of that. I believe we do market. We have a 3-year payback program on some of our fees. We only have one customer that has taken up on that, and another one declined. Do we market it? It's one tool, and the city is looking into that.
So just to clarify, your answer would be we do that, and what would you need to do if elected mayor to continue encouraging that?
There's a great process already that is moving forward, a collaborative effort between the utility and the city. It's not complete, but we're looking at other cities, developed cities that are having the same redevelopment problems and issues with the utilities, and looking at how we can do that. And the policy is not finished being built out yet, but I think that the city, working in a collaborative effort with SPUC, will be pleased with adding a stronger tool in the city's tool chest to encourage businesses.
Councilwoman Mokel, 30 seconds to follow up.
Well, I think that, yes, we might have low rates, but it's on the backs of the new businesses that come here. We need to really think about what we're charging these businesses as they come and want to be connected to our water service. I think the other thing is that Mr. Mars pointed out is that we haven't done a good job of being transparent with what we are paying at the utility. As a city, we don't know what that payment is going to be every year, and nobody can give us that number. So I think there needs to be some more clarification and transparency within that organization. As a public utility, we can't even find that information online.
Mr. Mars, 30 seconds to respond.
Are you talking about the fees or the money that we give to the city for cash in lieu of taxes to keep the taxes down?
It's tax in lieu, or cash in lieu of taxes, as well as finding a budget.
Well, I believe that the almost over $2 million that the Shakopee Public Utilities gives to the city each and every year, I think has varied less than $150,000 over the last 5 or 6 years. It's a very constant number. As we grow as a utility, the payment grows as well.
Councilwoman Mokel, I'm sorry you've used your 4 responses for the evening. But candidates, we do come to our last question for the evening, and for this question it'll begin with Mr. Hennon. Candidates, where would be the best place for people to find out more about your views on the issues that our community faces? Where can people learn more about you? Is there a campaign website, Facebook pages, Twitter feeds? How are you communicating with your potential voters? Mr. Hennon.
Well, I do have a Facebook page. And if you want to talk to me, feel free to give me a call on my mobile phone. Feel free to drop by where I live. I live right in the heart of Shakopee, and I'm willing to sit down and have a conversation with anyone. So,
Mr. Mars, where are the best places for people to find out more about your views and about your campaign?
I have a Facebook page. I have a website. I have a phone number. I'm a resident just like you. Give me a call, knock on my door. I'm always available to talk. If someone says I'm not, they're not talking to the right person. So I'm the most open person available.
Councilwoman Mokel, where would it be the best place for people to find out more about your campaign?
Well, my website is kathymokel.com. My email is info@kathymokel.com. My Twitter handle is @kathymokel. And I have a Facebook page, which is Kathy Mokel for Mayor.
Thank you, candidates. Well, this evening it is time for us to move into the closing statements portion of our time together, and each candidate is going to have 1 minute to make closing comments. Mr. Hennon will begin with you.
I'm the best choice here for mayor in Shakopee. I care about the people that live in the city. I've been born and raised here. I feel a strong connection to people, and I have a huge heart. And I want to care, and I want to move things forward, but in a good, professional way. And I feel that we can come together as a community and take advantage of certain community items, community center, all these different big-ticket things that we shouldn't be butting our heads on, but we should be coming together as a community. And I feel that my background and experience working in finance, I'm able to look at numbers and sort out things. So I'm asking for your vote.
Mr. Mars, 60 seconds to make a closing statement.
Thank you. I am the best candidate if you close your eyes and ask what you want in a leader. I have experience as a leader on many boards and commissions here in town. I have the financial background to help guide us over our next several years of some very large expenses. I am educated in business and finance. I'm experienced in government. I'm committed to family and community. If I was elected, I'm going to put the we back in community, and I'm going to put the team back into the city hall that we have missed greatly over the last 9 months. Last November, I spoke to the city council, and I actually said I was too mad to talk over an issue of firing of a city administrator. I said I was going to do something about it, and I'm doing something about it. I care about our community, and I think that we need to come together as a community, and that's exactly what I would do. I'm a name you know, an experienced leader you can trust. Bill Mars, November 3rd. Thank you.
Councilwoman Mokel.
First of all, I want to thank the Chamber and River Valley Church for hosting us tonight. And my name is Kathy Mokel. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I'm a business owner. I have served this community well in the last 16 years as I put roots down here and raised my family. And owning a business, I have a lot of experience of working with others, and I have more than enough qualifications to be your next mayor. Thank you.
As our time comes to a close this evening, allow me to remind you that the views expressed in tonight's debate are those of the candidates and not of the Chamber and Visitors Bureau. The Chamber is sponsoring this event this evening as a service to our community and has gone to great lengths to ensure the objectivity of this forum. The Chamber does not endorse any candidate but seeks to provide you, the citizens and voters of Shakopee, with the information you need to make an informed choice. Thank you to you as members of the audience this evening for your presence and attention. Thank you to our hosts, River Valley Church, and to Shakopee Kids Voting. On behalf of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau, I want to say thank you as well to you as candidates. We appreciate your time, we appreciate your candor, and we appreciate the service that you are doing to our community by the simple act of running for office. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Please remember to vote, and good evening.